Druid, but again, this question crops up, at least for me, where without Il'gynoth, can it actually pull out a win versus this Druid? I think this is one of the matchups where the weakness of not bringing the Il'gynoth style is actually really going to show.
Well, I'm going to stop you there, because again, this can be glass half full, glass half empty, right? Because no, they're not bringing Il'gynoth, but yes, they are bringing Glide. So, for example, when you compare it to Fell Demon Hunter, yes, you do have that ability to put in big damage combos with the Il'gynoth, but you don't have the ability to disrupt Celestial Alignment, shrink hand size, all the wonderful things that Glide can do, that Alatemu so kindly demonstrated for us over the course of the APAC tournament this week.
Over the course of his career.
Over the course of his entire career. They call it Six Glide Alatemu, they call him. They've been calling him that for years. But yeah, it's been pluses and minuses, I think, for this deck. And I actually had a chat with Casie last night. There's a thing that players do where obviously they will be playing the match as we're commentating it, but because of the delay, they quite often will end up watching the last 20, 30 minutes of their game as we are casting it. So things that we say at the end of their game that we've already clarified earlier on can sometimes get taken out of context. So for example, towards the end of the series yesterday, I was kind of trolling this deck a little bit for Tice because Tice got swept by a inferior quote version of Demon Hunter that this practice group has chosen to go with. Casie messaged me and was saying, you know, you still have glides, so you have good chances against Rogue and Druid. That's why you bring the version of the deck, which is actually something I was talking about a ton during the course of the series, that's the reason why this deck exists, right? Because you get to play Glide in Fell Demon Hunter this way. So it does make a lot of sense. It does give you game against Druid because of all the disruption that Glide actually represents. So we'll see if it pans out from here. Not to mention 12-12s. Pretty good, Raven.
12-12s are pretty good. I do like them quite a lot. And note to self, save all the spicy hot takes till the last half an hour of the series. And
no, that's how you annoy the players.
With no context at the players. It's going to be great.
I do genuinely do that on purpose sometimes, just because I know that's the point the players will be watching. Yeah.
Imagine not actually just watching the whole thing. You can rewind it. Most importantly, though, diving into this game, of course, Magtheridon on board, and there's not a lot, if anything, Jarla can really do about these 1-3s, right? We saw, for example, Gabby yesterday on Rogue actually shadow step one of them to stop the Magtheridon being able to be procced, but not really the case with Druid. Nothing you can get that really alters this. So Casie is just going to get Magtheridon live, and this is the old school approach to Druid. This is the Soul Demon Hunter approach.
That's right.
Wait a minute, can I just kill him with a 12-12 because Druid doesn't run any removal? Yes. Yes, you can.
Or was it Soul Demon Hunter versus Guardian Animals Druid back then it would have been, and this was kind of the go-to, is just get a big minion down on board, back it up with big weapons, big swings.
Oh. If that was more, that would have been spicy with his body of Cthulhu that Jarla has. Does also have Celestial with double Nourish and a gadget.
Does.
Now, as the desk pro for Celestial Druid, this form of it at least subtle, is this a Celestial turn?
Well, I think a good question to ask here is how are you winning a game where you don't play Celestial, right? Because your Celestial hand is good. It's not perfect, but you do have Nourish, Auctioneer, Do Stuff available to you on the following turn. It doesn't have the Anaconda in it already. Anaconda is just cheating because you get to play Anaconda first before you even start nourishing to gain mana, which just lets you pop off super, super hard. But yeah, I think a better question is how on earth are you doing anything if you don't play alignment here? So I do like it. However, this goes back to the dynamic I was talking about at the beginning, right? Where having Glide in your deck gives you such a huge advantage because Glide disrupts Celestial Alignment, whereas every card that you shuffle back into the deck, when any card goes backwards along a draw step chain, so from hand to deck, for example, it loses enchantments, which means all of those cards go back to full cost in the deck after the Glide comes down, if it can be played.
I grow impatient.
He's just going to choose to continue the push here and just rely, or hope, I guess, that Jarla doesn't have a way to kill Magtheridon. And even if there's a good turn, the turn would have to be very good, and I think along the lines of an Anaconda turn, to be able to, on average, to be able to actually threaten the Magtheridon.
Here you see the turn I was describing, though. Start with the Nourish, you can then get Auctioneer 1 mana down, and there is the Lady Anaconda. able to come out with that Lightning Bloom, and now the world is Jarla's oyster. Fungal Fortunes, Lightning Bloom, everything here. Nothing else in the deck is going to cost any mana, so he'll have plenty of mana to get those Cthulhu pieces cast. 16 cards remaining with infinite time at this point is probably lethal, but since the turn started a little bit slowly, I would be strongly doubtful that Jarla's able to get that.
This was the last half an hour of this match. I'd be like, no, Jarla's got this. I have confidence in him. He's great. But no, I do agree. He's going to be able to draw everything, though. And most importantly, that is likely or should get him more of Cthulhu. I didn't actually count exactly how many cards he had pre-Malagos. Yeah, he more of Cthulhu at Casey's face and wins the game. With the Druid there, Jarla going up 1-0 just like that. And that's a tough game, honestly, for Casie. And I don't mean that he particularly did anything wrong. I think he did a lot of things right. But he had the plan, right? Magtheridon, it was pretty much uncontested. We saw there wasn't a Maw of Cthulhu, which is the only real thing that could stop it. And he was dealing the damage. He was pressuring for lethal, but just about being enough there. Like, I would say that is just a good enough Celestial, right? With the double nourish is fine. Obviously, the lack of Anaconda really hurts a lot of the time, but just the fact he could get there was probably enough to warrant it.
Yeah, and obviously with Auctioneer in play, he was never really going to run out of cards, so he held on to things like the second Nourish, for example, just waiting for that Anaconda to come out, at which point he could pop off. But yeah, I think your description that Casie was doing things right is correct, because even past the Magtheridon, his play after that, obviously you have 1 mana after Celestial, so your decisions are quite limited, but he made the correct decision, which was to play a card from the left-hand side of his hand, which was blocking Glide, because then all he needed was 1 more turn. If it comes back to him the next turn and he has 2 mana, he goes Fury, Glide. Glide is Outcast, and then that mechanic I'm talking about where all those cards go back into the deck for Jarla and start being drawn again at full cost and become unplayable for Jarla at that point. Can be particularly brutal if you manage to shuffle the second alignment back into the deck and then make it cost 7, because then how do they even play around that situation, right? That's the only tool that they have to get all of those cards back down to 1 so that they're playable, but it itself costs 7, so that can kind of be a checkmate situation at that point. Casie was just 1 turn away from making that happen, but fortunately for Jarla, he just had the hand to be able to get there.
And he is now going to respond to this Druid with what some Hearthstone casters have called a better Celestial deck than the Druid, in the form of this Handlock and other Hearthstone casters.
That was me!
Being
He's talking
subtle.
about me!
And just rounding this out as well, Statsman Lorendo's flown in with a great bit of information. Casey's 6-0 with Warlock this week and has closed out every single match with it, with Warlock going 3-0 in one match, 2-0 in another, and 1-0 to obviously finish and win in the last one. So it's
well, I know a pattern when I see one, Raven,
yeah.
and that means that in this match he's going to go 0-0 with Warlock.
Oh yeah. Wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense, but it also kind of does. But no, most importantly, I think here, although Casie might not just sweep with Warlock now, I do think he has run into, well, he's matched a very good matchup here.
Yeah, particularly for the way this deck is being built, right? A lot of players have gone back to Greedy Warlock, Casie, Bunny, etc. Even Alan actually tweeted out and didn't quite get it done in the APAC region, but made it to finals again, had a huge run, and then tweeted at Casie and Bunny saying, yeah, we had the lineup. Like, clearly a lot of faith being put back into this super threat dense version of Warlock, and certainly for the Celestial Druid matchup, it's a good idea to have that masterful, better Celestial deck than the Druid in your lineup. And it does seem like there is a lot of attention being paid to Celestial Druid with these lineups. When I talk about the addition of Glide coming into the Demon Hunter, when you talk about extra threats coming into the Warlock, this is one of the decks that Casie, Bunny, Alan's lineup just always has a counter.
Right. Jarla just getting on with the turn, banking some health from this. Not too much of a surprise. It's not like he's playing on killing many minions with that Feral Rage in any real way against Warlock, so I do like him just banking the health, because he does have to fear some kind of giant into Battleground Battlemaster finisher, which is obviously an absurd amount of damage. Have the alignment, but again, like,
Good luck.
Yeah, the problem. Okay, real question now.
Yeah.
if he isn't playing alignment and risking it, does he even win the game any other way?
With this version of the deck, it's hard. Really, really hard. With the other version, like the version that we'll see Gabby play maybe a little bit later on, you can just play Token Druid and try and get there that way, play around the Soul Rend as best as you can, push damage early, just go token heavy, try and get Soul of the Forest, Arbor up kind of stuff to win the game. With this version of the deck, nah, this is what your deck does. You know, there's no other real win condition apart from hard ramp into Solar Cenarian, but that doesn't even beat this deck either, right? Because they have enough removal to kill 2 8-drops in their deck, and once they've done that, you're kind of out of stuff. But yeah, when Raven was saying that I once said that this is a better alignment deck than Druid, you see why. Like, this is a fairly, I mean, okay, there's 2 Flesh Giants, I won't call this a fairly average turn, but it's only slightly above average turn in comparison to what Druid is able to do on the other side. As it stands, Jarla actually has a very, very good potential response here if he can get hold of the Anaconda on the other side.
Yeah, Solar Cenarian Ward is exactly what you're looking for here, just to try and fight back. Not only gain the armor, but most importantly, try and gain some minions that can actually achieve something, whether that's through Taunt, through Rush, through Wind Fury.
Well,
doesn't look great, does it?
That's dying, so we've got 32, 37, 40 damage with the Battle Master. Is there a kill available on one of the minions? No, there isn't, right?
No.
So just slam everything.
And doing any kind of trades, even with a second swing, wouldn't open up any damage, right? Because of where the minions are set.
Yeah. Because of where the minions are set is an interesting point to bring up, though. There is potential that you could have gained more damage against Cenarian Ward stuff by positioning differently. So, for example, you could gain damage by null face once and then null trade and then get Wind Fury over something else if you're going to end up trading, but it's a very, very minor thing.
Turn now from Jarla is going to have to be pretty magical to have any chance here. He does have Best in Shell, but the problem, or the limit he really has now, just is mana, isn't it? The lack of Anaconda is felt because, unfortunately, Jarla has to pay mana for cards.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Absolutely shocking scenes. Too late. Literally one card too late at that point.
Okay, so let's just look at this for a second.
It's fine, right?
Yeah,
you just use Tamsin because the stuff that comes back is 0 regardless of Celestial Alignment, so you can just smash through everything with the 2 removal spells, get the damage to face, no problem at all. You want to look at it just super simply, do the removal spells kill 1, 2, 7? Yes, they do. Well, in that case, Giant can Wind Fury face, so it's super easy.
Done. Yeah, I actually think he might have been able to do that even without the Tams in there, but
yeah, I think so.
Doesn't matter, Casie gets the victory, and again, good counter Q there for him, being able to just take down the Druid. But this is where we have the kind of that back and forth match, right? Because now I'm going to take a stab at this, but because I've not seen it yet, but I'm guessing Jarla's going to Q Mage into this Warlock to try and just prey on the fact that Warlock's got slower, and Mage was pretty decent against Handlock anyway. His other deck is his Rogue, and I don't think that's quite as strong, and also it leaves his Rogue till a little bit later on. So yeah, confirmation now that Jarla is in fact going to Q his Mage. Makes sense.
It does indeed, but again, it's another matchup where potentially big threats can be an advantage. Early Inetheron and early Knolls are one of the best ways, I think, to pressure Mage, and pressuring Mage is the only real way you can win the matchup. Certainly not going to get there with late game Tammy 2 burst combos, because you will be long dead by the time you reach that point. So landing threats nice and early is the go-to, but of course with how much the Giants have been slowed down, nerfed from 8 to 9 to 10, but then also nerfed even harder because the quest procs, largely in a lot of matchups, the only reason you even play the quest is to get those extra procs on the Giant from the healing that you get as you tick over. So the fact that they are now slower slows down those Giants as well, which means getting big threats on board is quite difficult to do against Mage. That's why you want a Netheron, that's why you want Knolls, just to be able to get that pressure going early.
And also because seemingly everyone is playing Magtheridon in every list now, Jarla does have that extra little bit like layer of safety, right, where he has a slightly earlier full AoE removal turn, basically, that Mage normally doesn't have access to until they've already finished their full quest line. Instead, Magtheridon on turn 4, and then pretty much whenever he wants, unless Casie procs it for him, he can just activate Magtheridon with a Fire Sale, for example, and just delete any kind of threats Casie plays.
Interesting decision already for Jarla as to whether he wants to play Cram Session as his first arcane spell here. He would double his chances of hitting Incanter's Flow on curve, but he would also be kind of wasting an arcane spell in that regard. And of course, as we all know, Cram Session is the go-to power card later in the game after you have the quest completion hit.
Yeah, something has to be very dire for you to have to play Cram Session before Dawngraspers hit the board. But now I'm interested in what would, in most versions of Mage, be a very easy Fire Sale cycle. Now with Magtheridon, I don't hate it. The thing
is, though, is Magtheridon a tool that you're going to get out early and use to pressure as a 12-12? Probably still, right, if you're being given that hand, but does it potentially have more value against Warlock as an actual board clear later in the game? I think it would be hard to activate in a lot of positions, right, because threat plus Cult Neophyte comes down, you already need 9 mana to make that clear happen with Magtheridon plus Fire Sale, so I think in most reasonable scenarios you are just probably jamming it out.
And now he has the choice, especially because he has the water, right? He can either just play it out and be okay with taking 3 for a little bit and just hold the Fire Sale as and when, or he can choose to activate it and play a much more aggressive style. But I think with this hand, he doesn't have Ignites, he doesn't have Ruined Orb, doesn't have Fireballs, so I don't think the aggression's necessarily the plan. Although now, with the Neophyte, he might be forced into it because the water's going to be too expensive.
Yeah. The thing I worry about this kind of play is that it is a little bit catch-22, because now Casie can just say, all right, you've given me 3 damage in play, I'll add a little bit to this and attack you with it, and you know, you have to make the decision of whether you're going to clear this or not, because I don't think Casey's going to add significant threats to this board. Jarla does have counterplay against that, of course. He can just throw First Flames and Brain Freezes at a couple of minions and just clear up the last ones whenever he wants. But I do think the tug of war with Magtheridon in this matchup in particular is quite interesting to look at.
This Neophyte's done some great work this turn, right? Stop Spring Water, now makes it so that we can see the Incanter's Flow that's been drawn doesn't pair with anything else this turn, not even a hero power. As you mentioned, the First Flame plus Brain Freeze would do a decent job of reducing the damage down to 2, but would also take up Jarla's whole turn, although it would proc his quest, right? Oh no, sorry, it would mean he needs 1 more Arcane, yeah. He's just gonna go with the flow. One more tap, I believe, procs first stage of Casey's quest.
But again, this is that tug of war, that game of chicken I'm talking about, right? Jarla's like, you know what? Fine. Hit me with this. You will have to play more stuff. You have to get cards out of your hand. You are a Warlock after all. So if more threats hit the board, I can just clear this up later. And I think this is kind of the dynamic, right? Is how brave both players can be with the looming sense of disaster that Magtheridon presents.
And the problem as well is, at least on Casey's side, is if Jarla does take the sort of cherry pick the minions to kill approach, then if Casey's going to stick with not committing too much, then if he just plays like a Flesh Giant on one turn, a Scavenger on another, well, Mage excels at just picking off or stalling 1 or 2 minions a turn, so you kind of played into the Mage game plan already at that point.
Yeah,
tricky.
The factor here that we haven't really mentioned yet is that Casey's prepared for this 12-12 to go off. He doesn't really care that much about it. He cares about his board being wiped, but the 12-12 being on the other side, no big deal. He has the clear locked up in hand in a variety of different ways. It's just the mana that he will have to allocate to clearing it that will be the hassle.
Yeah, looks like he's just going to clear off the null. going to be okay again with taking 3.
It's the most Jarla game I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen some very Jarla games. It's like, no, you can't make me. You can't make me play this fire sale. I'm not literally dead if I don't play the fire sale, so I'm not going to. You're not my mum. You can't make me. Do you think it was hard to get Jarla to, like, clean his room when he was a kid?
It would be if you had to, but I don't think anyone did. I imagine Jarla's room was always spotless.
Ah, okay.
See what I mean?
Yeah. It's spotless apart from one trophy, very clearly placed in a. It doesn't even do that. That's such a weird reference. Congratulations to viewers of Hearthstone Grandmasters like 2 years ago who understood that joke.
Casie needs to just dump his hand at this point.
Yep.
Oh, 2 out of 8 on second quest. Oh, it's so far away.
It's gross, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, no neophyte found off the raised dead. Somewhat irritating.
More bones to gnaw on.
Here for the tour?
These 1-3s have been putting in work, though. Now, does he commit a giant? Because again, the problem is Jarla can... You have to expect Jarla to have the ability to easily kill the Null at absolute minimum. And then does Jarla care about taking 4?
Oh, this is such an interesting game because, like, again... I think, you know, if Casie played the Giant and he got AoE'd, I think the reaction from a lot of onlookers would be like, oh, you idiot, like, Jarla finally baited you and he's actually cleared big threats from the other side. But honestly, I'm starting to look at it the other way, which is like, in what world are these 3 1-1s actually getting there? They're just not, right? Like, they can attack for 5 more turns before Jarla even begins to care about it, and that's not even factoring in Ice Barrier at this point. At that point, is the quest not just complete? Are you not just getting ignites thrown at your face at that point? I feel like you need to get this Magtheridon out of the way. Spend 1 turn playing threats, so Jarla has to clear. Spend the next turn doing the Tamsin Unstable removal thing, and then have an insane turn where you get to play all of your cards because there's not that threat of removal anymore. I think outside of that, I think you're just too slow at this point to keep up with Jarla. I might be wrong, and I hope for Casey's sake that I am.
Well, the problem as well is 1 raised dead down already, so even if he, at this point, does sort of sacrifice the Flesh Giant into the maws of Magtheridon, then he can't even like resurrect it as often because there'll also be the 3 1-3s in the pool at that point as well. There's Dawngrass though for Jarla. And now it's only a matter of time. Casie 3 cards away, now 2 cards away from being 10 or less to have that Bristleback activated. And he'll very much want it activated in the near future because he's going to need to heal.
Certainly is. A little bit wasteful now on quest, but I think getting raised dead down for potential cult neophyte is a very big deal. Does do so.
Confuse Jarla with the additional 1-3. Jarla only kills 2 of them, then realizes it wasn't the right 2.
Wasn't the right 2, yeah. Seems unlikely.
Oh, he's doing it. The mind game play.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's just not the right placement, is it? He knows now.
So the way Casie ended up doing it, he's used his mandatory clear turn, if you want to phrase it like that, to block the Arcanist turn on the other side, which does make some sense as well, right? This kind of helps him buy an extra turn because he's demanding the clear to come down. I think he saw the mouse movement there from Casie, knows what his next turn is. Tamsin Shadow Blast.
Interesting, right? Because I get myself in the Jarla mindset. I'm like, does he have to clear the board this turn? I was just there. Well, I was just there because he has Flurry, he has Rune Orb.
You've ascended even further beyond Jarla, Raven. Even Jarla clears the board that turn.
I bet he looked though, didn't he? He's like Flurry, Rune Orb.
Yeah.
Don't hate the Solarium play, but I guess he just wants the additional spell damage. You can't really fit everything all in the same turn anyway. But Fireball, what's it, 9? Yeah, Fireball, Dawn Grasp, and Ruined Orb are all one turn for next turn. But you can just double Fireball at this point if there's no healing.
Because he got the tour guide, Casie is very, again, just a nice window into the way that the minds of these very fast players work, like Casie and Blythe. We saw Casie very clearly planning to make the play that I've been talking about for 3 or 4 turns on the previous turn, right? He moused over Tamsin, he moused over Shadow Blast. He knew he was lining that up. When he drew Tour Guide off the top, look how quickly he recognizes that he's now able to divert to a different play because he essentially gets to life tap for 1 mana instead of 2. Which is able to get this down super, super quickly, recognizing that the breakpoint in the interval has changed to the point where he can load out, get the healing with the Bristleback, get the 6/6s down to pressure the Arcanist turn that much harder.
Now looking at this, access to Cram Session from way back when, double Flurry available for Jarla means that the 6/6s don't get to swing and the lifesteal doesn't happen this turn as well. It just looks like a great setup for Jarla to just obliterate Casie next turn. Sure, add more damage, why not?
Hot Streak as well. Hot Streak was an interesting kicker card there that I was thinking about as to whether the Solarium was supposed to come down, right? Whether that created any weird breakpoints with Ignite, Hot Streak, Fireball, for example, anything silly like that to happen. But I don't think it changed anything. Obviously, you see 1 less card at that point anyway with the Cram Session, so I do think this was good ordering in the end.
That was kind of interesting, right? Like, is there a world in which double Flurry doesn't just lock out the game? I know there's access to heal here. We're going to see a lot of Drain Souls. But Jarla did choose to sort of risk this lifesteal being left up as well. So Casie is going to be able to pretty much reset his health, right? He goes all the way up to 30 with this turn. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this answers your question as well, right? Because he goes to 30 before the attack.
Yep. So
by this merit, like having 2 flurries over 2 different turns to actually give yourself that extra turn does seem to be better, right? Because it wouldn't have mattered whether the healing was frozen or not. What he would have done is flurried on that previous turn and not really had a way to answer the board now and been dead to Battle Master potentially. So I think having the extra flurry does make sense. Unless he just 30s him, of course, which, you know.
Possible.
Not ruling it out.
I'm not saying he won't.
Yeah. Oh, Spring Water!
Yeah,
lethal! It's been a while, Raven!
More spell damage as well. What was that, 8 or 7? 8, yeah.
It's 8,
spell damage.
yeah.
The 2 fireballs, I think, are approximately 1 million.
Yeah. 2 fireballs
then
for 1 million. It's just 2 fireballs. They're 11 each.
Oh, it's 11. I thought
it doesn't even need the Spring Water.
I kept not counting the second spell damage. Yeah, there you go. Just like that. Maximum damage.
I thought you knew. When you said fireballs are approximately 1 million, I thought you knew at that point, so I was just letting you take over, and then no, you managed to throw.
Let me take the wheel. But yeah, so good victory there for Jarla. Again, it's a tough matchup, I think, for Casie. It was very interesting just watching the Magtheridon sort of back and forth from the players, just to see how they approached it. And it's one of those things now where, let's say this matchup becomes common, it's definitely something that means Sottle would sit in many, many games of going, well, what if I just go all in with Magtheridon? Okay, well, what if I just go all in with the aggression early, make you prop Magtheridon, and then so on, so on. So it's a lot to test out, and I'm not sure that in that specific situation the players have much of a sort of confirmed answer to that strategy, but a good effort from Casie.
What if they just played it and they didn't actually have the fire sale the whole time? What about that, huh? How about I call your bluff?
You just play it and be like, he's going to believe I've got it. What a fool. Yeah, Jarla takes the victory with the mage, and now Casie is going to be on his rogue for his last shot here. It's going to be a tough one, rogue versus mage. Where do you fall on this nowadays? Because I know when we talked about it, I think a week or even 2 ago at this point, it was, I think you took the rogue as the favourite overall?
Yeah, I did. There wasn't too much mage hanging around at that point,
right.
It's got to be said. But even then, like, we were expecting when people, we were hearing rumblings of nerfs at that point as well. We were expecting perhaps Rogue to be a victim of some of those nerfs, but I do still think that that not having happened, I think the Rogue has a decent edge here, because still, I would say on average the kill combos potentially appear at around the same time, but the difference is Rogue gets to spend its mana on tempo and asking questions, which is generally a better thing to do in Hearthstone than just being the person that's off-board throwing spells. Many would argue that that's not quite as true in this metagame as it has been in the past, and that is probably true, but still, if you both have a combo kill on around the same turn, I would rather be the deck that's playing minions, and I think in this case, absolutely true for Casie. Bit of housekeeping as well, that was of course the first loss, as pointed out by Lorinda earlier. Casie was undefeated with the Warlock up until this point, so Jarla able to hand him his first loss with the Warlock, now looking to hand him his first loss in terms of series as well and march on through to that final. And that hand, these hands are both revolting.
Yeah, before the second contact especially, but you know, even with that, I was going to say, so how much does double encounters change your thoughts on this matchup, Sol? But then again, Casey's not looking too bad himself. The
How much does double Octobot, double contact change yours, Raven?
Rubbish. That's what I mean, like, this is actually pretty incredible. Both decks at maximum power.
Yeah, this is episode 30 of the arc. They've gone through all the posturing and screaming. They've
had the filler episodes.
They've had the filler episodes. We found out what Bulma and Chi-Chi are doing, and now we are just watching the actual final transformation of both of these decks at this point.
It is looking truly ridiculous, isn't it? The water here for Jarla, just to be able to keep that cycle going. That's one of the ways you can fall over sometimes in this mage. If you have a double Encounters Flow opening, well, guess what? 2 Encounters Flow doesn't draw you cards, so you do need to find the card draw follow-up in a relatively quick fashion to keep up with the opening that Casie has, but Jarla's got hold of it, right? The water into a 1-mana Arcane Intellect. Imagine paying mana for cards in 2021.
Literally can't imagine. Couldn't be me. Haven't paid mana for a card since 2017. He just double quested on turn 4. Hello?
We're just going to see an on-curve Dawn Grasp. An on-curve Dawn Grasp is something that everyone talks about. Like, oh yeah, they always get it on 5. They always... And no, they don't. No, they don't.
Yeah, they don't. No, they don't.
It's a lie.
They don't.
Everyone who would ever complain about Mage is like, oh, Ignite me on 2, Dawn Grasp on 5, Lethal me on 6. It doesn't happen. It's a little bit later than that. So when I say, are we going to get a turn 5 Dawn Grasp, I do mean it as a genuine surprise.
If you played someone who Ignite you on 2 and lost, you've got bigger problems. Let me just say that.
Don't worry about turn 5. Another intellect for Jarla. Has the Phoenix active soon as well. Oh yeah, this is a Fireball Ignite to the face.
Is it now?
Just get the damage in. More realistically, it's not. Probably what Ruined Orb to try and find... Would he try and find a minion?
I wonder.
But what if it is, though? I'm a little confused, just going back while we were kind of messing around, about the pick of the Phoenix from the Primordial Studies, because... Again, we were talking about on-curve Dawn Grasp, right? He's never quite going to get that, but he is only Fire Frost away. So having a minion that he could actually just play that was a minion on board would open up First Flames, Brain Freezes, all of those kind of stuff to actually be able to end that. You can see right now, if there was an actual live minion in play, he could just Fireball Face, Brain Freeze his own minion, and then have Dawn Grasp on the following turn. So I'm a little surprised that he went with the Dormant pick here instead.
Yeah, does get Mana Biscuit though, and although it doesn't really achieve what he wants it to, it's a good second place prize, I would say, just opening up more mana to do probably 50 other things in the same turn with that 2 mana. Casie though just getting some Octobot reductions, but I guess my question for you now, Sottle, is at this point in the game, both players having incredible openings. Is Jarla on Mage, is that opening just a little bit too incredible for Casie here?
It's looking like that might potentially be the case. Oh. Casie is going to have to kill in 2 turns from this point. So maybe 1 setup turn next turn, if he's lucky. But even then, Jarla can probably cut into that 1 setup turn by getting Dawn Grasp down this turn, which is easily available with the Mana Biscuit that he got on the previous turn. So it is looking that way. It looks like Jarla might just be a little bit too quick with the Incantus Flows on this occasion.
Yeah, well, even now, he can Dawn Grasp for natural 5 mana, then Mana Biscuit, Cram Session, and just still have so much mana to play with.
Oh my god, you're right.
It's so strong.
What if it's just lethal?
Yeah, it might be. He does have some natural, well, some new Ignites in the list, though, so they will cost 2 mana. That's but for 8.
He has Runed Orb. He has, okay, so he missed his hot streaks, right? I think if he hit hot streak, that was just straight up lethal because he could cheat 2 fireballs still at this point, right?
It's 1 damage off. That fireball hits for 12, I think.
Oh, sorry, yeah, +2, +1, +3. Yep, that's 12 damage.
Wow.
All right, Casie, you're the road god. If you can do it with 14 cards left remaining in your deck and 17 mana, be my guest. 17 mana? I mean, that would be a lot easier. And 7 mana, then be my absolute guest here, but I do not think you can do it.
We'll give you Frenetic's 5 points he had from winning last season, if you can make it.
Disclaimer, that will not actually happen. Raven and I do not speak for the tournament admins of Hearthstone Esports or Blizzard Entertainment.
And we definitely don't have any effect on the rules whatsoever.
No.
I do like, and I know this is maybe not too much of a surprise from Casie, but I do like he's just going for instantly, right? He knows what he needs to achieve. He is very dead. Get it locked in.
Okay. Okay.
Wait a minute. Just to confirm, I was joking about Frenetic's points. No one get me in trouble.
Passage for steps and bleeds, right, is worth. Yeah. You can draw at most 1 bleed. You want no more than that unless you find preps as well. That's too many! Get back in the deck! Needs to draw like bleed into prep. No! Doesn't quite get there! Valiant effort, but in the end, the power of the flow was won with Jarla, and in the end, Casie's valiant run this week in European Grandmasters is going to end at the semi-final stage. Jarla taking his long-vacated trip back to the top. It's been a while, it seems like, since we've been talking about how good a player Jarla is in Europe, but he's put in a fantastic performance so far this week.
Yeah, Jarla looking very, very strong, but I will say it was a good effort from Casie on that last turn, because it simply just shouldn't have even been possible to suggest, but he went for it, and he got close, and that pretty much sums up the hand there from Jarla. Casie just chuckling at how much raw power there was available. The double flow into Spring Water, into 1 mana Arcane Intellect. As I mentioned earlier on in this game, the one small downside you have of double flow is it's 2 cards in your opening hand that isn't card draw. And if you whiff on the card draw, you can get stranded just a little bit. But luckily for Jarla, that was not the case. And he is going to await the winner of Letta and Gabby to see who's going to face in the finals for week 6 of the Hearthstone Grandmasters. Jarla versus one of those 2 players. And honestly, if